People who know only one or two missionary names know this one. Anybody might well be ashamed not to know the name and something about the work of David Livingstone. He was a doctor, an explorer, and discoverer, a philanthropist who did much for humanity, and most of all, he was a missionary hero who gave his life for Africa. When only 10, David Livingstone went to work in the cotton mills and bought a small study book out of his first week's wages. A schoolmaster was prepared for evening lessons by the mill owners. When David could have the master's help, he took it, and when he couldn't, he worked on alone. In this way, he mastered his Latin. He was not brighter than other boys, but more determined to learn than many. He used to put a book on the spinning jenn and catch sentences now and then as he passed the place in his work. In this way, he learned to put his mind on his book, no matter what clatter went on around him. When 19, he was promoted in the factory. At 20, the young man became an earnest Christian. It was about this time that Dr. Carey, sometimes called the consecrated cobbler, stirred up the churches on the subject of missions. A good deacon formed a missionary society in Blantyre, and there were missionary talks and the giving out of missionary books. David Livingstone became so deeply interested that, in the first place, he decided to give to missions all he could earn and save. The reading of the life of Henry Martyn stirred his blood, and then came the appeals of a missionary from China, which thrilled the youth still more. At last he said, "It is my desire to show my attachment to the cause of him who died for me by devoting my life to his service." From this time he never wavered in his plan to become a missionary. He got a good preparation through 7 years of study and became not only a regular minister, but a doctor as well. The young man wanted to go to China, but the opium war there prevented him. Then Robert Moffat came home, and Livingstone heard him plead for Africa, and say that he had sometimes seen in the morning sun the smoke of 1,000 villages where no missionary had ever been. And this settled the question for him. He would go to Africa. Arrived in Africa, Mr. Livingstone finds some easy work offered at a station, but pushes on 700 miles towards Dr. Moffat's station. Here, the people think him a wizard able to raise the dead. An old chief says, "I wish you would give me medicine to change my heart. It is proud and angry always." Livingstone shows the way to Jesus. He is the first missionary who ever came into this region. How busy he is as doctor, minister, and reformer. He studies the plants, birds, and beasts. He finds 43 different kinds of fruit and 32 edible roots in one district. This man keeps on exploring, telling of Jesus wherever he goes. When he writes home, his letters are covered with maps of the country. He is learning more about Africa than anyone has known before. He studies the African fever and the deadly flies that bring disease. During this time, he has the adventure with the lion, often mentioned, the fierce creature rushing on him, biting him, and breaking his arm and crushing his shoulder. It cripples him for life, but he says little about it. In putting up a new mission building, he breaks the bone in the same place, but hardly mentions it. Years later, a company of royal surgeons identified the body brought home as that of Livingstone by the scar and the fracture. For 4 years, this missionary hero toils alone in the beginning of his life in Africa. Then he is happily married to Miss Mary Moffat, daughter of Dr. Moffat, who told of the smoke from the 1,000 villages where Jesus was unknown. Now they work earnestly together in a station where the chief is the first convert. Before he fully learns the Jesus way, the chief says to the missionary, "You cannot make these people believe by talking. I can make them do nothing but by thrashing them. If you like, I will call them together with my head man and with our whips. We will soon make them all believe." But the missionary teaches him the true way. He goes on exploring new fields, teaching, healing, and helping all the way. He goes into the interior, forcing his way through flooded lands, through sharp reeds, with hands raw and bleeding, and with face cut and bloody. He sets himself against the slave trade, the open sore of Africa, as he calls it, battling heroically against it and enlisting others in the struggle. His wife and children must go home, but the man stays to work on alone. Finally, he disappears for 3 years, yet he is found in a wonderful way by Henry Stanley, whom he leads to Christ. But he will not return with him to England. He toils on, weary and worn. One morning in 1874, his African servants find him on his knees in his hut beside his bed. The candle is burning still, but the brave, unselfish life has gone out. They bury their master's heart under a tree, carry his body on their shoulders 1,000 miles to the coast, a 9 months' journey, then send it home to England. There it sleeps today in Westminster Abbey. But the hero and his work live unforgotten and ever to be remembered while the world endures. The script for this audio was taken from the book 50 Missionary Heroes Every Boy and Girl Should Know by Julia H. Johnston, a book that is in the public domain.